So welcome back to Sports Seriously, y'all. Joining us for our NBA Finals episode now is our friend of the show and three-time champ and former Chicago Bulls point guard, BJ Armstrong. All right, BJ. So we had you on as a guest a while back when all the Last Dance drama was playing out, and we all know the role you played on the court, but I do want to start off talking about some of your experiences in the front office, and specifically getting your thoughts on how well of a job Brad Stevens has done in his new role. He's obviously proved he could get it done drawing up the X's and O's, but obviously when you look at where the Celtics are now, in your opinion, how much of that credit does go to Stevens?
Well, I think it has to, go to the executives that were there years before. So you have to include Danny Ainge in that as well, because Danny Ainge was the one who drafted Marcus Smart. He drafted Jaylen Brown. He drafted Jason Tatum and all those players, Rob Williams, so forth and so on. So you have to give him credit for doing that. But also Brad Stevens recognizing and understanding what this group needed at that particular time to get past the conference finals. And now they have an opportunity to become world champions. So it's a collective effort. I think Brad Stevens is the one in charge. So you know what? You have to look to him.
I'm with you. Danny Ainge getting credit, totally deserves all that. Let's flip it to the Warriors for now. By all measures, this should be a team we're talking about being on their last legs of dominance. But somehow it seems they seem pretty nicely set up in the future with some young stars in the making. So how good of a job has that front office done to keep that momentum going?
Well, as I look at this, and Bob Myers being a friend and Steve Kerr playing with Steve many years there in Chicago, the one thing I definitely want to highlight there is their scouting staff, the ability to find the Jordan Pooles, the Jonathan Kumingas, and these young players, James Wiseman. So when you infuse young talent along with experience, you have an opportunity to have what's called sustained excellence over a length of time. Very difficult to do, but give those veteran credits, in particular Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson, for accepting, that Father Time misses no one. Maybe LeBron James, but no one else it misses, okay? Father Time misses no one. So for them to be able to infuse all of these young players, give their scouting department, high praise for identifying these players who can play at this level, but more importantly, the leadership of Steph Curry and these guys, taking these young guys under their wing, Andre Iguodala, you can see these guys, Steve Kerr, for allowing these young players to really kind of come into their own at their own pace, but more importantly, have an opportunity to win while they're learning on the job.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Who would you say is better set up for the future? Is it the Warriors or the Celtics?
Well, I would say the Celtics right now. The Celtics are, and the reason I would say that is because Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, with they 24, 25 years of age, and without question, they're all-star caliber players. I think the young players of the Golden State Warriors have an opportunity to reach that level, Jonathan Kuminga, Jordan Poole, and those guys, but they haven't done it yet. You're looking now at Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and you're saying, this team is going to be good for years and years to come because they are elite players at such a young age. So I would say right now on paper, but you never know. Things change very quickly here in the NBA, but certainly I would love to be an executive at either one of these organizations because their future is set up and the future looks bright for both organizations.
BJ, you obviously know a lot about the word dynasty. You were a part of it with the Bulls in the 90s.
I just wish someone would have told me. I had no idea.
Exactly. Well, hey, since then, obviously, we've seen the likes of the Lakers, Spurs, and most recently the Warriors develop on what one would consider a dynasty. So could you just tell us all the ingredients besides winning that really goes into the making of a dynasty?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's a mindset and the mindset of your best player. And to really simplify this, you're only as good as your best player. And your best player has to have the highest of the highest leadership capabilities. And what does that mean? Not only just being a great player on the court, you have to have leadership off the court as well, because, you can't just say, do as I do, do as I say, but you got to actually do the work. And that work is done each and every day. And that starts in practice. That starts in the off season. And then when you get to the season, that's just the byproduct of what you've done when the cameras are off. So when you look at the Golden State Warriors and you look at Steph Curry, okay, Steph Curry is without question, he has elite leadership capabilities. I mean, his leadership is impeccable. What he's done this year, I think in any other time in his career thus far, of accepting all of these young players, taking on that responsibility. And he's done something really I haven't seen really since Tim Duncan. He accepted coming off the bench Okay, you're talking about a back-to-back MVP, one of the great players of all time, let alone one of the great shooters, one of the great players of all time, was coming off the bench when the playoffs began this year. Just think about that for a second. And now we have a guy that's going, he's been to the final 6 times in 8 years. So that's leadership in and of itself. When you have your best player willing to accept whatever role is necessary to win games and execute that, there's nothing else to say. Everyone else falls in line.
So, BJ, we'd be remiss not to indulge with you in the whole GOAT conversation, seeing it as you saw one of the top contenders for that crown in MJ. But obviously, the second name on most people's list is LeBron James. He's starting to lose some steam in his battle with Jordan for that title when he's not even making the playoffs late in his career, obviously, albeit on what was supposed to be a super team. How do you feel about that?
When I started thinking of the GOAT, first of all, I got to take what era they played in, the training, so forth and so on. And when you start looking at this game since 1946, there's been some amazing players, right? You can't have a GOAT conversation without having Wilt Chamberlain. Okay, a guy scores 100 points in a game, well documented. He averaged 50 points, 27 rebounds, 12 blocks or 13 blocks a game for an entire season. He played every minute of every game plus the playoffs. You can't do better than that. Okay.
Absolutely.
He played in every minute of every game. Okay. Plus overtime. What more can you ask? Honestly, there is no GOAT, but I can tell you this. There's been some amazing athletes. Certainly LeBron James is up there of whatever the greatest athletes of all time. But when you talk about Bill Russell and you talk about Wilt Chamberlain, you talk about Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, wow, like I would just love to see that game. Okay, just let me be in on that game to see these incredible athletes in their prime playing against one another, because the competition would be just fabulous and we would all be in for a treat.
If we're talking about this current era, Steph Curry, we can call him greatest shooter of all time, but is he the best player of this generation? If we are talking about best players of this generation, can you definitively say Steph Curry? I guess LeBron James is in that conversation too, but where does Steph then fit into this era?
Well, I think without question, is when you talk about accomplishment and what he's accomplished on the player, without question, he's been the best player on the best team. Now, literally, they have 3 championships, possibly 4 coming in the last 6 years. When you start talking about greatest of all time, okay, you not only have to consider on the offensive end, you have to consider on the defensive end as well. The player now that best exemplifies that currently in this generation would be Giannis. Giannis, to me, is probably as unique of a player as we've seen since 1946 because of his size, his athletic ability. Steph Curry is, without question, his impact on the game on and off the court speaks for itself. But when you start talking about the game itself, size in this instance really will hamper your ability to be in that conversation.
Hey, sports fans, if you want to watch more sports seriously, be sure to check out these clips right here. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel to see all the great content from us here at USA Today Sports.